Welcome to Company Showcase, an advertising feature on HowStreet.com.
I'm your host, Jim Goddard. We're speaking with Larry Reaugh, CEO and President of American Manganese. Welcome back to the show, Larry.
Well, I'm glad to be here, Jim, and if I forget, you have a great weekend.
You too as well. Larry, what's your take on the current markets and the influence of world conflict?
Well, gold is now beginning to act like it used to a couple of decades ago, in which any kind of a hostilities arise or potential wars or those sorts of influences on the price of gold used to send it up. And we're seeing that happen again because it's a safe haven and it's a good barometer of what's happening in the world, and it's also considered money. So, it's gold is performing well. It's got, there's still a foot on its neck, but because I think it should be a lot higher, but it's at least it's making the indications of coming back to a old gold market and not a financially rigged market. And the other thing is that we've had really good increases in the price of base metals, barring today, which we've had some pretty significant corrections across the board. And that, again, is starting to look like more of a supply and demand situation. I mean, the stockpiles in copper have dropped down to about a little over 200,000 tons. And that tells me that, yes, copper should keep going north of $3. But again, it'll be influenced by the financials. But I guess the thing is that what we look at when we run one of these companies is we have to be in touch with the overall market. And certainly when you look at the other critical metals out there, Cobalt is on a tear. I mean, it's at $61,000 a ton now. And, of course, we expect that we will be a significant producer of cobalt from our recycling program. And lithium has been moving up, although lithium's a small part in the batteries and certainly does very little to influence the profitability of a battery. The other cathode materials like nickel and cobalt, and to a lesser degree manganese and aluminum, they paint a pretty good picture for that market. So it's a market that has a great degree of uncertainty in it, and I imagine a lot of people are saying, well, how does this affect the overall stock market? Well, as you see, the Dow's been going up and down, up and down, up and down, and the Toronto Stock Exchange has been following that. And so it's uncertainty, certainly for the financials in the current market. And but I see that Amy should be able to benefit from that.
Well, how do all these changes in the market affect your company?
Well, it has to be all positive. First off, if there is some kind of a conflict that breaks out, like with North Korea, you're going to be looking at these critical metals that are used in some of your ballistic defense high-tech weapons, and so where's that going to come from? And even the low-tech side, where are you going to get the manganese for the steel? Well, fortunately, we have solved the problem that the U.S. had for decades, and that was where would they get domestic manganese, and how could they turn around and make that into a profitable situation? And Amy sits on a technology that can do that, and it has worked on for about 80 years. And but with Chemetco, we broke we went through a new cutting-edge technology for the recovery of manganese metals and dioxides at a very low cost. As a matter of fact, our costs are very competitive with China. So Amy's not just a recycling company that is going to bring a lot of rare metals back into focus and probably help alleviate the situation where there's a big demand for cobalt. But it's also a critical metal company that is definitely going to be needed even in the making of steel. You can't make steel without manganese, and if there was some kind of a world conflict or war, you need that manganese for all your tanks and airplanes and everything else for the steel component. So, you go back in history, in World War I, the United States got its manganese out of Germany. And in World War II, they got their manganese out of Russia. So those are the sorts of situations you don't want to find yourself in. One of our advisors, Dan McGroarty, who was addressed the Senate here recently on the critical metal and the fact that there were 28 metals that were totally dependent on imports, mostly from China, and there are 51 metals, and mostly from China, 28, over half of them. You got to say there's got to be a niche here that Amy could fill. So I see Amy benefiting from two different sources now, and that one, of course, is the recycling, which looks like a very profitable enterprise, and the manganese at Artillery Peak. With our process, we could supply the metal or the dioxides for the battery industry. So I think it's an excellent opportunity for Amy to become much more prominent out there, and certainly should be considered by the Department of Energy or the Department of Defense in the U.S. And I keep talking about the U.S. They're the major consumer of all products, and in the U.S., so they're not totally dependent on outside sources. And so, this is a critical time for Amy. I think it's as people begin to recognize that we've got a few bases covered, that that the time will come for our shareholders to benefit.
And Larry, for new listeners, can you tell us about American Manganese, what you do, and what kind of process you have?
American Manganese is a critical metal company that is out of British Columbia, with our major holding in manganese in the U.S. We have intellectual properties, one that's patent pending, and that's for the recycling of lithium-ion batteries, and we've had 100% success in that so far. And the other is for, as I mentioned earlier, the production of manganese metal or dioxide from very low-grade deposits, and I'm talking 2 or 3% deposits. We're located, our website is AmericanManganeseInc.com, and we can be reached at 778-574-4444. And you can actually contact me at my email address is lreaugh@amymn.com, and that's spelled LREAUGH @amymn.com.
Larry, what platforms are you traded on and under what symbols?
We're traded on the Toronto Stock Exchange Toronto Stock Exchange Venture Exchange under the symbol AMY. We are traded in the U.S. under the symbol AMYZF, and we are traded in Frankfurt under the symbol 2M.
Larry, thanks a lot for the update.
Well, thank you.
We've been speaking with Larry Reaugh, President and CEO of American Manganese. I'm Jim Goddard. We were speaking on September 8th.
Comments made on Company Showcase are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any manner whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Archived online at HowStreet.com. Company Showcase is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.